You're listening to What She Grows Through, a podcast dedicated to empower and uplift Black women to grow their self-worth. I'm your host, Chanel Amir, one of many dope Black women, creating a community for us to pour into and align with one another, uncovering our true feelings from sexuality to self-love, to begin growing through life and evolving into our best authentic selves. Let's get started. Hey beautiful, it's your girl Chanel back again with another episode of the What She Grows Through podcast. It's been a while. But we're just going to jump right into it. So the quote that I have for today says, "When we give birth to our baby, we also give birth to an incredible strength and love that only comes with motherhood." So today I want to talk about my little baby, new to the world, Ryan. I want to talk about her birth story while it's still fresh in my head. Recording this episode, it is now 2 weeks that she has been on this side of the earth, I should say. Does that make sense? I'm not sure. But I'm going to do as best as I can. I did skip last week. Just, everything was just going, I don't even, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just trying to manage 2 kids and, a newborn baby and breastfeeding and you just trying to find the time, so even recording this, if you hear her little cries, then I'm trying to juggle doing both at the same time. But I definitely wanted to get back and share with you all her birth story. So it's just as I look down and I'm breastfeeding my little baby, I can't help but think back to that crazy day on February 5th, 2021 at 6:34 p.m. she came into this world. You hear her. Meeting her was another surreal moment, other than her big brother Bryce, of course. But honestly, I'm blessed to get to experience this twice. The love that I feel for her is unlike anything I ever experienced. It's so powerful that, even thinking of my children, it just children, I got kids. But just thinking of my children, it just makes my heart just, I don't know, just swell, I guess. I could literally just cry thinking about Chanel having 2 kids, a little boy and a little girl. Oh my God. I'm emotional, but we're not going to talk about that. But yeah, let's get into this birth story. So her due date actually was January 28th, 2021. And I just knew she was going to come that day because I knew the exact day of conception. So I thought that she would come around that, However, that day had come and gone. And honestly, I was slowly losing it. I wanted to see my baby so bad. I wanted this pregnancy phase to end. I was tired of the sleepless nights, with the crazy heartburn. And I'm over here trying to prop my pillow up. I'm literally trying to sleep sitting up, basically, because the heartburn was just so bad. Me waddling everywhere, just everything. I was tired of it. God damn it, I was tired. I was over it. I sacrificed past 40 weeks now And at this point, this little girl, she's tripping. Like, the little girl's tripping. I guess she was just so comfortable in mama's belly that she wasn't, ready to give that up. But my last checkup before her due date, January 28th, my doctor said that I was still 1 centimeter dilated. Oh my God. But 80% effaced. However, she was able to stretch me to 3 centimeters. I was geeked. She also did, what do they call it? A second membrane sweep. So this is when we started talking about induction, because at this point we getting there, but with my son, being naive, just a little history on that. With my son, I decided to take part in a study where I would be able to get induced at 39 weeks. And being that it was my first child, I was just so anxious of meeting him. I decided to do it. But it was weird, picking an actual date that your child would be born. But anything after 37 weeks was considered full term. So during that induction, everything went well, but I wouldn't dilate past 5 centimeters. And, with the Pitocin that they was giving me, his heart rate would drop with every contraction. And, after a while, the doctor suggested a C-section. My water was broke, and, with no dilation, baby's heart rate continuing to go down. They believed this was the safest route to prevent a risk of infection. So C-section it was. So scared, and like I said before, I didn't do any research, as I had my mind set on giving birth vaginally. But because this experience, I was nervous of getting induced again. I wanted my baby girl to come on her own, but at this point, I was wondering, would she ever come on her own? I mean, the date was scheduled for the 5th of February, and it was the evening. I think they gave me a window of 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. So that was going into the 6th of February. But I was praying that, she would come on her own before then. Each day came and gone, until it was time for the induction. I couldn't believe I'm at 41 weeks. And this little girl is still, she's still not coming. I'm a week overdue, and I knew for sure she would come on time. But she wasn't coming. So I went to bed that night with my son, and with the thoughts of possibly, seeing my baby this weekend. I woke up around, I'll say 5:30 in the morning to go pee, all of those trips to the bathroom. But at this point, I had what I thought was just a Braxton Hicks contraction. I've been having those occasionally for the past week now, but nothing even worth concern or timing, So I went back to bed and snuggled up next to my little boy. I then was awakened about a half hour later to some pain, but this time it began to last longer. My thought at this moment was okay, I may actually have my baby today. And I was starting to get excited, oh, all right, it's coming. The timing was I couldn't go back to sleep because the pain continued. I'm oh, all right. So I'm thinking, all right, maybe I should start timing these, This is when I noticed that they were coming in, my contractions were coming in around 10 minutes apart, lasting about a minute. So my doctor had told me to call or, come in when they become 5 minutes apart. So at this time, I decided to get up and make sure that I had all my last minute bags packed, for the hospital. I also wanted to try and eat breakfast because I knew it was going to be a long day, I'm sure. I have an app that I was using during my pregnancy that has a contraction timer on it. So out of nowhere, my contractions began to go to every 3 to 5 minutes, literally out of nowhere. At this point, I began to panic because, I refused to have this baby at home alone. So I had to get moving. I called my sister to watch my little boy until his dad was able to come and grab him. And I started hurrying up and started getting dressed. But man, them contractions were no joke. I woke my little boy up, and he's such a good little boy. He saw me going through it with these contractions. I would have to constantly sit down and try to breathe through them. Oh my God, it's so hard to breathe. But this little boy would be rubbing my back. He knew I was in pain. I will always remember my 4-year-old little boy trying to help his mommy. But I was able to get him to my sister's house, and super emotional. I was hugging him and kissing him, and I told him Mommy was going to the hospital to finally have Ryan. I told him I loved him and I missed him, and then I was off to the hospital. So let me tell you, trying to drive while having contractions every 3 to 5 minutes, I would not recommend whatsoever. I knew in this moment I had to be strong and get myself there as quickly as possible. Luckily, my hospital was only 10 minutes away. The second hardest part was carrying 2 bags while in labor and pregnant, of course. But I got to the registration station and I checked myself in pain. About this time, it was a little after 7 a.m. Everything was happening so fast. Oh my God. They admitted me, and I was in a room waiting for my own room so I can start to deliver, get on the process of delivering. These contractions are not, I repeat, not for the weak. And I knew from the beginning I was getting an epidural. With my first pregnancy, I made it to 2 hours without one. And I commend women who are able to push through that. Oh my God, it's so hard to breathe. It's just so hard to breathe through this. I remember the nurse telling me, slow down. So frustrated and in pain. I began to think I couldn't do anything other than cry, I was able to let my little girl's dad know that I was in labor so he can begin making his way to me. But I don't know what to do if I had to go through this entire labor on my own. Oh my goodness. I finally got to my room. It's funny how when you're in so much pain, you have no care in the world who sees you naked. I was in that room going through it. I wanted this pain to go away, and I was wondering where this anesthesia person was. Finally, after 3 hours of active labor, they finally came, and it still took a while for the epidural to kick in. As I began to calm down, Ryan's dad finally came, as well as a doula, which I was super happy about. This doula was one from my actual hospital. They asked me if I wanted one. Yes, I do. But the doctor came in and checked me, and I was 7 centimeters. I was so excited. I'm gonna finally get to have my baby vaginally. And I just needed 3 more to go. I was geek. Okay, so I'm not sure if this is part of the epidural side effect or if this was just a labor part. But back in the day, when I first started having my period, I would have real bad period pain to the point where I would throw up. And I would throw up so much. So now it's to the point where if I'm about to throw up, I know exactly when. So I knew I was about to throw up. So like I'm talking to her dad and just out of nowhere, I'm like, I need to throw up. So literally, I feel like I threw up maybe like 3 times. But at this point, nothing is in my stomach, like, so I'm literally throwing up acid, stomach acid. I don't even think I was able to drink any water or anything. Laying there talking to her dad, just out of nowhere, a bunch of nurses and doctors came rushing in to check on me. So apparently Ryan's heart rate had dropped down to the 60s. And I had like a 3-minute contraction that I didn't know about because, I was feeling good. I had the epidural. This began to worry everyone. They continued to monitor her once it went back up. Anything under 100 is they're gonna get worried. Her heart rate was around like in the 140s or 130s. So it going down to the 60s, of course, like, they're running in. Like they, I think at one point they put an oxygen mask on me. So this continued off and on for the next few hours. And then I wanted them to check me again to see if I dilated anymore. Still at 7 centimeters. Ryan's heart rate dropping continuously. Like I was faced with, again, some tough decisions. I wanted so bad to have a vaginal birth, but not at the cost of her being so distressed that, she might not make it to that. And I would have to get an emergency C-section. So I asked the doctor so many questions. I was so close, man. I was so close. 7 centimeters. Like, you know how emotional you gotta be to only be 3 centimeters away? In this moment, like, I felt so down because I knew if I did this, if I got another C-section, I would most likely not be able to have a vaginal birth for, future children down the road, I also knew the recovery time would be rough, being a major surgery. In this moment, I had to make the best mommy decision and get my baby girl here safely. So I decided on the C-section. I just remember crying while signing the papers to go through with it. The doula and Ryan's dad did all they could, to reassure me. But again, I just wanted my baby and to get this all over with. I was exhausted. The contractions began to get so strong that, like, I felt them through my epidural, like all in my butt and in the back, like all in my back. It was just, I just needed this to end. So, off to C-section. They prepped me and I was in the OR. This is where things got a little crazy. So, I first remember throwing up yet again on the table while they were prepping me, shaking my head. They were using like a suction thing to get it all up. And I just didn't feel good at all. I don't know what was going on. And I actually didn't throw up that much my first pregnancy. I think I did once, but this time it had to have been like the 4th time that I threw up. They had to adjust the medicine strength for the C-section. And in this, I believe they may have made it too strong because I literally could feel nothing. My last C-section, I could feel, when the normal waist down. But in this moment, I couldn't even feel my arms. I then began feeling as though my chest was numb as well, and that prohibited me from breathing on my own. At this point, I began to panic because, like, I couldn't breathe. And I continued to tell them, like, I kept telling him, like, I can't breathe. And, like, yeah, I was panicking, like, until they put the air thing up my nose and just told me to relax and breathe in slow. And that I was indeed breathing. I was just numb. It was to the point where I felt like I couldn't even talk. I remember being so scared, like so scared. But her dad was there beside me holding my hand, and honestly, he did a great job guiding me through everything, relaying what the doctors was saying. I couldn't have done it without him. I then heard my baby girl's cries. And when I tell you, that experience is indescribable. To hear your child's first cries, first entrance into the world, I knew she was here safe, finally. No matter how messed up I felt myself, I then tried my best to stay awake while they finished closing me back up. They got her all diapered and swaddled, but when you do the C-section, no skin to skin. I cried because I couldn't hold my baby when she came, but what gave me comfort was knowing that her dad had her right next to me. I could hear his like sweet little conversation with her, and that literally gave me life. I remember just mustering up the strength to say to him, like, we made a baby, our little girl. The hard part was over. The one who was inside me all those months, growing and kicking and hiccuping, finally joined us in this world. It was so surreal. And then it was time for the the post-surgical recovery area, I believe. The team, they wheeled me out into the bed, and, you know, I was still completely numb, couldn't move anything. I remember it was just wild. But finally, once we got there, I was so happy to finally be able to really get to hold my baby, even though I couldn't feel my I was still trying to gain the feeling in my arms. One of my arms I couldn't feel, the other one, it was slowly coming back, so they had to literally hold her on my chest. But in that moment, that was emotional also. I was just happy that it was over and I got to finally see my little baby and hold her, and it was great. But that's when they're doing all the checks to make sure you're okay, making sure the baby's okay. The doula, she did a really good job at being there. It was to the point where later her dad had told me that in the operating room, when he had gave the baby back to the doctors, he had to actually ask the doula if he can get my hand back. I guess she was the one holding my hand the whole time. I thought he was holding my hand the whole time. But he's like, yeah, I think she liked you. It's like, maybe. But anyway, I was happy that I had both of them. Everything went well, and we were up to our room. She did a really good job latching. I mean, at first, obviously. Okay, let's take a break. You hear her? We only stayed 2 days. I was able to go home. They offered me to stay a third day, but I was ready to go home. I was just, taking it easy, Now, when it comes to, postpartum, the only thing that I can say is I think because it was a second C-section, I was extra sore. Like, they gave me some pretty strong painkillers, but honestly, like, that wasn't working that much for real. Like, I was hurting. It was to the point where I couldn't even sleep in my bed. I have a real soft bed, and it's actually pretty high up. So I couldn't even sleep in my bed. I had to sleep on the couch for a couple of days. But yeah, we had that. And then the other thing was, they give you stool softeners with everything going on, a C-section, and then all the pain meds. Like, you're susceptible to being constipated. When I tell you, like, that, I'm just being real. It took me 5 days to actually finally be able to poop. And it still was kind of traumatizing for real, because I feel like those stool softeners wasn't even working for real in my body, to a point like it just I couldn't even like slowly like push. My body was just doing its own thing and just pushing, and it was to the point where it felt like I was gonna like tear my incision open. Like, it was so traumatizing. That I say that, and just the whole recovery was just pretty it was a lot. It was definitely a lot. But 2 weeks in, I'm doing way better. I'm using the belly binder that they give you. So I suggest any moms who actually have a C-section definitely utilize that belly binder. That just keeps everything intact, If you got a cough, or if you got to laugh, you got to hold your belly. But just take it easy. Even though I had to go through, having a C-section again, like I said before, it doesn't matter how our babies get in here, as long as they're out in this world as healthy as possible. I'm a belly mom twice, and I was a little hurt that I wouldn't be able to give birth to her vaginally, but I mean, on the bright side is I don't gotta recover right there. My lady parts is alright. but yeah, I definitely wanted to share my baby girl's birth story with you. I love listening and hearing other people's birth stories, because we're all different. Our babies get here like in different routes. So this just all ties into the quote that I have for you today is, when we give birth to our baby, we also give birth to an incredible strength and love that only comes with motherhood. So it's like, when you're in that moment and you have to think about, you don't even think about yourself anymore. You're thinking about your child and what's best for them. And that's just the most craziest strength. Just giving birth in general, like the strength of a woman is just, it's incredible. Incredible strength, like the love that you have just becoming a mother, that love is just indescribable. That's why I thought this quote was great for her birth story, because having her just pulled out a strength that, like, I didn't even know that I had. And just being a mom and just wanting your baby to be 100% healthy and safe, and you'll do anything for your child in that moment, anytime, but in that moment you're ready to do anything. And that's the strength that only mothers have. Giving birth is crazy, incredible. It's amazing, but it's also scary, and it will pull out, every ounce of strength that you actually have. It'll show you that you are strong. Obviously, I talked about it before. Our birth plans, they might not go as planned, but in that moment, you just want to get your baby there safely. You'll do whatever it is to get your baby there. So yeah, I'm a belly mom. That is perfectly fine. I have 2 beautiful, healthy babies. And that doesn't make me any less of a mom on how they came here, how they got here. It doesn't matter. I gave birth to them. And I'm blessed So I hope you all enjoyed her birth story. I definitely will recommend you go on to my page at What She Grows Through and check out her actual birth story video. It was outlining my entire pregnancy. Very emotional. Oh my goodness. Thank you for tuning into yet another episode of the What She Grows Through podcast. If you enjoyed my baby's birth story, definitely give me 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. You have to scroll all the way down. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you think anybody else can utilize any of the gems or birth stories or whatever, definitely tell them about the new podcast. You can follow me on both Facebook and Instagram at What She Grows Through. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will talk to you on the next episode. Until then.